By my watch plus on December 12th, 2018, I'm calling the select board meeting to order.
Did you take that pencil out of the drawer?
No, I put a piece of wood in there instead.
You take it out.
Any adjustments to the agenda?
We can table 6B to expedite the meeting, if you so choose, because it's really nothing that needs to be decided upon tonight.
Does that need a motion?
No.
Okay, good.
We'll do it as we go along. Okay. Any other adjustments to the agenda?
I move we accept the minutes.
I haven't got to that point.
Oh, really?
But we go.
Well, I mean, you're jumping on that one.
The agenda.
I have a motion to accept the minutes of November 20th, 2018.
Now it's quiet.
Second.
Yeah.
That has been seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, and it's carried. Communications and public comments.
See, nobody.
Representatives Mike, well, I'll make a mess of that. Our two House of Representatives who do not seem to be here at this time, so we'll move on in case they show up. We can always bring them back in. Any unfinished business discussion and action, fiscal year 20 budget review and revenue and expenditures adoption.
In your packet, you have the changes that were made in discussion last meeting, which would have been the sheriff's reduction to 1,500 hours.
You mean that's in the budget now?
That's now in this final
Mhm.
document. I think that was the only change that we had.
Mhm.
Hey, Mike.
How did your meeting go on the,
It was good. I thought it was good.
do you have anything to report?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, Kevin, some of the main things. Well, we basically went over with Russ, we went over some of the numbers that people might question, or we might question. So, and I think we agreed that, you know, the listers budget, and they asked for a wage increase, which we were questioning because they have not as yet started on looking at 1/5 of the properties, am I right, in town?
That's correct.
They're slow about doing that. On the other hand, as Russ pointed out, $15 an hour is low, is below the state average. So I think we kind of agreed that we would accept that number for the listers, but if they didn't get a move on, then they would be paying a budget penalty next year. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yes.
What
Everybody
are
else
they
think?
doing instead of doing?
A lot of
Unclear.
training right now. This is their first, this is the second year with all three of them. So they're still doing a lot of training and working together on getting their head around our mapping versus our inactive and active parcels, and trying to learn how to receive a new application or a permit and apply it to the Grand West.
So they have picked up quite a lot more, we've transferred more responsibility on the listers than what we had before.
That's correct. So they are still in the process of getting all of that data down and divvying up the tasks. So not all three of them are doing that one task. So it seems to be a work in progress, but it's moving in the right direction. The only thing they haven't started doing is the site visits. And hopefully by spring, they will be working on that.
Well,
So-
don't they have to, it has to be done by April 1st, doesn't it? And any change.
Okay, so now we're talking two different things. So you're talking the permitting part, which is Al Putin's job from Nimerick. He goes and takes the permit and puts the assessed value to it. Then he goes to, gives it back to the listers, and they apply it to the grand list. So what we're talking about is what you five have always said, is you would like to see them visit at least a fifth of the parcels each year, just to ensure that they're not adding on and there's changes. So that is two separate items, but we haven't started that second one yet. But-
They get half the budget, because it's a total of 44. He gets 22 and they get the rest, if you look at it, is that right?
That's correct.
Right,
Al
so-
only has just his.
Just right, so if they ever got a license and they wanted to do that, that'd be a different story, but they're only doing that. How much income do we get per year, because we are allotted from the state so much money for that reassessment? You get any idea? Each year we're allowed, they keep sending us money each year to have that. In other words, the money they're sending us is for that.
Yeah, I forgot what
You see what I'm saying, Russ?
I do, and I
Because
can't
we-
remember what they call it, but it is.
Because
in
we got
this-
accused one time of taking the money, because we were actually using part of the income to pay for the assessors, the listers. Then they came back and said, well, no, that's supposed to be put aside so that when you have a town-wide appraisal, you have the money sitting there to do it.
But the listers were doing the appraisal, so it was.
Right, it was catch, then we stopped giving it to the listers, and we
Yeah.
start putting it in a kitty someplace.
We do, we get it, and it does not go in through the general fund, and that's why it's not on this. It
Right.
goes directly to our reappraisal fund.
It's a reappraisal
and
fund.
It is.
Well, if somebody asked
I
me,
recall, and please don't hold me this, it's somewhere around 14.
I was gonna say 14,000.
thousand.
it's
a
almost
year.
their it's almost their whole pay. Well, because we only have 14,000 to
But when you
reappraise.
do a reappraisal there, you're talking.
No, but each
substantial.
year, if they did the 20%, our theory was that's what they were getting paid for, because after the end of the 5 years, everything would be up to date, and we wouldn't have to do it. That's what on paper it was for,
Yep.
Okay. It's been a while since I ever asked you for that income.
I guess the only other, so we went over a bunch of things that are essentially, if people have questions about them, then we can answer them, but maybe the only, right?
Yes.
And I guess maybe the only change I wanted to make in the budget, and this is minor, but we haven't seen any real reason why the elections budget should be $1,000. So I guess I propose cutting that back to 300.
The elections,
Yeah, for the ballot clerks. In FY '18, it was $200, that's what we spent. So we budget 1,000 and kind of minor.
What page you on?
It's
I
just
don't
gonna
know.
ask
What
that.
Page 2.
oh, elections.
Wasn't it originally we were gonna have to spend some money for somebody to man the phones when they switched over to where you could call in, and we also had to pay something to have them go visit people who couldn't come to the register to vote, and you had to
I
have
have
2 people
no-
go? I remember one time,
information on this.
when they
This is a
switched the
clerk
rule,
question.
we
Right.
set some money aside thinking we might have to pay some extra for it.
And have we done that, do we know?
To do what?
You remember, you had to have one Republican, one
Yeah,
Democrat
but
go
we don't
visit.
get paid for that. That's-
Right, you don't,
that's-
but
You
we-
remember, that's Board of Civil Authority.
But you actually, we had to set money aside because we were having to have somebody man the phone, because you could call in during the day and actually vote. Well, which we used to, remember Doreen was here and she set the phone up over in the corner?
Has that ever happened since the
never-
last couple of years?
I
What
can't
remember
I have no
that.
information.
Well, overall, it's lower.
do you mean overall, sorry?
Well, because the operating supplies went down to 3,000 instead of 4,500.
Yeah.
The ballot clerks.
Yep.
Yeah, I
Do you
don't,
want to just leave it,
well, I don't know,
To the best of my-
what do we pay the ballot clerks? What do they get paid? The ballot.
Most of them, and again, this is not my.
It's minimum wage. for
Minimum
anybody that
wage,
comes in.
but most of this is done on food, so that they can pay the volunteers to be there for lunch and, well, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So,
That's
I
what
do
the
have
$1,000 is for?
that part of it, and then the stipends that are paid come out of that also. But again, I don't wanna misspeak here,
No, I
this is
understand.
not my line item.
But in the past, we don't have the expense, in the past, the most it ever cost was $300, is what you're saying?
Well, I'm saying it was $200 in FY18.
Yeah, but we're not done that year.
Yeah, we're done.
Yeah, we're done
not-
that year, FY18, we're done.
18 is done.
At 18, okay.
We're into 19 right now.
And I
I
guess,
thought you, oh, you wanted to lower it to 300. Is that what you-
yeah, I mean, it's
We
minor.
don't have any elections this year, so. but-
I don't have 16 and 17 with me.
Okay.
I mean,
Sorry.
I don't care, I guess, but just find it.
Anything else, Kevin?
No, I just wanted to report that, thank Russ for all the information he gave us. This was, we were responding to a taxpayer inquiry that was put in writing. We thoroughly went through it, in my opinion, Sue,
Yeah.
and thank you for all that you did. I'm satisfied with everything that was evidenced, and
Yeah.
the one issue regarding zoning administrator and the TM combination, as far as I was concerned, as far as responsibilities, Mr. Hodgkins brings quite a bit of professional experience and history to the job, and explained very succinctly the history of the prior utilization of the zoning administrator and the effectiveness for which the combination of the two, at least in my observation as the newest person, has more than been fulfilled. It's very effective. Do you disagree or not agree?
No, I agree. Yeah.
That's all I got.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thank you guys for doing it.
So this is,
So if you're pleased with it, I would love to put it to bed with an adoption.
We can adopt the expenditure and the revenues. It's not a move because you're just basing the revenue is the revenue.
We're basing the revenue needed to offset the costs of the
Right.
budget.
We basically get no control over the revenue, I guess that's my
Right.
point.
And then it changes, of course, at town meeting when everybody votes
Right.
the articles in, so. But at this point, it's.
I'm gonna say the word.
Do you want a motion to
You got
approve the
somebody,
budget?
somebody in the audience raising their hand.
Hi there, my apologies for being late, I had a meeting in Brattleboro to come from. I guess, I appreciate all of the work that everybody's done to look at this, and Russ has been very good about getting me copies. I personally have questions about line items. I am grateful that the increase in the expense is only 2%, but as I've pointed out in the past, the other side is that the property tax share of the revenue is 17% increase in 2 years. And I was at the meeting where we talked about CPI and how much, to give for a COLA, and we settled on 2.5% or 2.8%. But you guys have collectively raised the share of this budget that's paid by property taxes by 16%. And so something feels really wrong there. Great that the expense is up 2%, but how do you deal with that fact that you're asking residents to pay, a 17% increase in 2 years? So that's, and what's the process if you adopt this tonight? Or I know I saw in the Gazette that there's a public meeting, which is fabulous. But what's the process? What happens at that public meeting? Once you adopt this, is this the budget that goes to town meeting? Or is there?
That would be
no?
correct.
So the idea of the public hearing, as I understand, is that it's an informational meeting. So that we just don't get to town meeting, then people have questions. I mean, obviously they can ask questions at town meeting, but people who are really interested and want some questions answered earlier, they can come to the informational meeting and get things cleared up, which of course they can bring up again at town meeting and make changes if they want to then. I'm just thinking that it makes the process
Sure,
sort
easier.
of more effective and, yeah.
Can I ask just 2 questions of my many, and then I guess we'll just leave the rest?
Sure, go.
So I was at the meeting, 2 meetings ago when the sheriff was here, and I know there was a lot of discussion about what to do about that. And it seems that the board has decided to actually increase the cost over fiscal year 19 by $6,500. And of course, their rate is higher, so we get less hours, but you're asking us to pay more money. And I'm just curious what the conversation was about, why not going to 1,000 hours at 51,000, which would actually save us $20,000. So, you know, it's a difference of 8 hours a week, roughly, 9 hours a week, and my understanding was that the town was considering backing off on the traffic, you know, this basically the speeding enforcement, because we get less money back now. So I missed that whole conversation, I'm sorry. What led you to to actually increase the budget for fewer hours than what we're getting now, instead of going to the $51,000 place?
We voted as a board we took a poll amongst the select board. The majority of the board wanted to go down from 2,000 hours to 1,500 hours. We knew the cost of the sheriff's department, and we decided to renegotiate the contract. And if they can't, basically, if they can't honor the contract that we want with them for the 1,500 hours a year, then we may not have a contract with them, period. And we are looking at other options at this point in time.
And was there any consideration for the 1,000 hours, or is that just not even on the table?
It was discussed.
It was discussed.
But you folks felt that it
The majority of the board decided to go with the 1,500 hours.
It was mixed. Mixed.
So there are 2, I'm looking at page 6 of this version of the expense line. The equipment buildings section. It's kind of near the top of the page. The actual for FY, I just don't understand what this budget line is and why we have $15,000 in there. So the actual for 2018 was 4,300. The actual for 17 was 4,000. The actual for 16 was 1,500. So we haven't spent over 4,300, but we have $15,000 in there, and I'm just trying to understand. I know that's in case we need it, but if we haven't needed more than 4,000 in 3 years, I'm just curious why that sits at 15 grand.
Can I answer it?
Go ahead.
That number has been in there to create a new door for a truck that we keep postponing on replacing. Right now, we have to buy a truck, and we have to actually have it altered to get it into one of the garage doors. So we've been postponing that move because we keep spending substantial money on other buildings in town. So we have all our ducks in a row this time, and we are going to take the garage door off, try to raise the concrete bricks and get the door so it's much larger, and that is about a $15,000 expense that we've.
Did we? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
I was going to say, and there was a discussion about maybe having to replace the town hall generator too, right? And maybe using that money, do you remember?
That's correct.
That's a
That's
possibility.
a possibility out of that
Yeah.
line, yes.
That would come out of this line?
It's equipment building, yes.
Mhm.
Does
So-
that answer your
so-
question?
It does, but so I guess the follow-up would be is if you think fixing the door would be 15 grand and we're spending 4,000, wouldn't we then want that to be 19,000? How will we fund the 4,300 that we're regularly spending if
Where's the 4,000 you're talking about from the year before?
FY
But
18
it's
actual?
not gonna cost a total of 15, I think what he was trying to say. We always spend,
And if we have
right.
a need, we can pull the generator. The generator just barely broke down 2 weeks ago. It was the day that you guys had a meeting. So we haven't looked into how we could pay for this, but we also have an emergency management fund, and that's what that generator was earmarked. I mean, that's how it was purchased, so that's probably how it would be repaired or replaced.
Okay, I was just, you had said you thought the door repair, to fix the door so the truck could get in would be 15,000.
That's the last guesstimate that we got
Right.
from a contractor.
Right, so that is just logically leading me to say then maybe we need to actually, even though I'm trying to reduce the budget, maybe we need to have 19,000 in there for annually spending 4, and the door is gonna cost us 15, then isn't that a $19,000? Anyway, I just have a different way of doing municipal budgets. Just below that, the first line under gas, fuel, and oil, I also don't really understand this. Last year was roughly 50, the year before was roughly 50, the year before was 60. So that's a $40,000 to $30,000 lower actual for 3 years in a row, and I'm just curious what the rationale is for having a $90,000 line item there.
Aren't all those items below added in?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So you look at the bottom line.
No, I thought the 50 was, I'm looking at the 90,000, I'm sorry, I thought the repairs and parts was all included below. but
That's
that-
correct.
Right, so the gas, fuel, and oil is its own line item, is that not correct?
No, that's correct.
Right, so if
That-
gas and fuel is budgeted at 90,000 every year, but the most we've ever spent in 3 years is 62,000, why do we keep putting it in at 90,000? What about 75?
Because this supplies the fuel for not only the equipment, the buildings, but the fire department as well. So this number was created, worst case scenario, years ago. That hasn't changed for, the last time I looked, it was over 10 years. That 90,000 had been kept there.
Well, and I guess that's my point, and it has been my point for a month and a half now, is if we have actuals, then why aren't we using the actuals to build our budget? If we're just continuing to put placeholders in that don't have any logical, historical significance, then we're over budgeting somewhere around $30,000 to $40,000 in this line item. I'm all for having some extra, but if it's just because it's been there for 10 years,
So the 48,000, excuse me for interrupting, 48,545 is the actual town fuel, correct? Not the fire department.
No, that's everything.
That's everything.
That's everything.
Well, that's a good point, actually. You know, why are we doing it that way?
You gotta go back and look, was when we filled that tank up, it's a chunk of money. Now, did we not fill it at the end of 1 year, so the next year? So I think you gotta look at 2 or 3 years. Because we've been some years where we filled it up. 'cause
I
we
don't have that in front of
Yeah.
me. I didn't grab it tonight.
I'm
No.
just, Russ sent me, I asked for, and Russ has been great about sending me the information I'm asking for. So he had mentioned at a meeting that you guys had actuals. I had brought up, where do these numbers come from, that you had actuals going back to FY16. I have a copy of that. I spent a lot of time going through every line item and looking at actuals and doing averages. And this line item has not exceeded $62,000 in 3 fiscal years. So, yeah, let's be safe. I wouldn't propose cutting it to 48,000, but I guess I still don't, if it's just been a placeholder and it's always been that way, why?
I think we had a couple of years where the price of oil was gonna go extremely high, and then we had enough money in it, but it does seem to be more
Well, so
stabilized.
75,000, that would give you a $15,000 buffer over the FY16 height. You know, I'm just
I think
I'm
it's a
just
good
trying
point.
to bring things up, and so I'm sorry if this is getting to the minutia, but it's real money, and it's real money for real people. I can afford my property taxes. There are a lot of people who can't afford a 17% increase in 2 years. And so,
Well, I think that's a good point. Is there any logical reason to have this at 90,000? I mean,
I had nothing to do with the creation of this 90,000, and I don't have any history of, well, how it got there and what it implies.
but you, in other words, you're saying there really is no reason for
Not
it
that
to
I
be
am
90,000.
aware of.
Well, I think it's a good point, so why don't we reduce it to 75? That gives a little room to move. How does anybody else feel about that?
I agree.
I think what we gotta do back, Russ, is you bought a lot of new trucks, and I don't think what we realize is, I like to go back and see, I know that all the trucks I've sold you, or we've sold you, get much better fuel economy, and that's where most of it's going. We heat the buildings the same every year, so our heating hasn't changed, you know what I'm saying?
It has. We went to a wood
We've
burner.
been the wood
so-
boiler now.
Right, so
So
I'm just
that-
saying, it's not gonna increase. So the only other thing that you would look at would be your vehicles, and I got a feeling our vehicle consumption might be going down every year.
So we could even drop it more.
I almost think so, we go back and look.
thank you, I appreciate that. The very last, well, I have lots, but the last question I will take your time with is, on the last page, the county tax, intergovernmental expense, it's on line 8, page 8. The historically, it's been $22,000, and last fiscal year it was 10, and I'm just curious, this is more curious, like, what happened, and is it 10 going forward, or is it back to 24? How do we, I don't even really know what that, I guess we have to pay the county tax. But it was, last year it was 50% of what it has historically been. It's been 22, 22, and 22 or something.
They said it was gonna go up this year.
It did go up, but pittance, but that looks like a half a payment to me.
That's what
So
it looks like to me,
it was
too.
done.
About the 9,000?
The $9,775 was a half a payment. Now, whether they paid it in the FY19 budget year, I'm not sure.
Okay. So it
But
really,
but
it really is
23,
24. Okay.
yeah, and this one's 24,000.
So it's one of those things where the payment got shifted to a different year.
Could have.
And I didn't have time to look at this, but in the minutes, I thought it said there was a savings of $11,000 for the road crew, but I wasn't able to see that number change anywhere in the budget. But
Wages,
It changed from,
46,000. Originally it was 346,000, I believe, and now it's 335,000.
that's correct.
335,
And originally it was 346,000.
okay, great. I guess I didn't go back. Well, thank you for that consideration.
Mhm. So have we changed the gas and oil? What is the process for that?
Just gotta change it to 75 and then change the bottom line, and when we adopt the budget, we just adopt it with that much less in it.
It's not required.
So, do you want do a motion to change
I'll make
the,
a motion to change that item to 75,000.
Second that.
motion's been moved and seconded to change the,
No, what one?
oh, I gotta get to it. Just a minute. I lost it. Okay, this one. The fuel, the gas, would be the account number for gas, fuel, and oil that is presently at $90,000 to be reduced to $75,000 for the proposed budget. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Now we want to do the bottom line.
The total budget or the bottom line of the,
It'll be now 2,170,130, right?
Say that again, Craig, did you
You
do
mean
the math?
2,170,130.
motion?
I move that we accept the budget, expenditure budget for fiscal year 2020 and set it at $2,170,130.
And can you tell me, Toby, who seconded your motion? Did you do it?
And
The
Craig
first
did.
one, Craig,
Yeah. I second this motion.
thank you.
Motion's been moved and seconded to accept the final budget for fiscal year
Fiscal year.
yeah,
What, 20?
20, 2,170,130. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
2,170,000.
170,130.
You said 171. You skipped the zero. That's all.
Okay,
It's on recording, so you go back and listen to it.
I
You'll hear
will,
what-
yeah.
You'll hear what you actually said.
2,170,130. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That's the budget.
We should go back to public.
yes.
Yep, we will.
Okay.
Now that we got that part done.
Yes.
We moved on because you weren't here, but we figured we'd come back to you if you showed up. So we'll go back to, we'd love to listen to you under communications and public comments.
Well, thank you for allowing me to come and visit, and I need to send the regrets of my new district mate. He has a sick child at home, and will be unable to join us today, so he sends his regrets, but hopes he can come at another time to meet with you. I can share that last week we met with the Putney Select Board, and we're hearing similar pieces. Of course, they're deep in their budget too, as budget time, as are our schools, and we know that you're looking at every piece of the budget to make things work here, and it's a tough job for you. And when we head up to Montpelier, that's usually the first thing we take a look at. The budget adjustment happens every 6 months, and then shortly thereafter, the governor will put forth his budget, and that's really where everything emanates from. So we're looking at an interesting dynamic right now, because as you all know, the school budgets are the biggest part of our town budgets. And last year, statewide, school budgets came in under 2% increases statewide. I don't know where Westminster came in, but my guess is they're probably in the same ballpark. And the challenge with that is, because of the complexity of the current funding formula, even towns that had declines, sometimes you're going to see an increase. So what has been percolating for a few years and got close to the surface last year was an idea to change the way we fund schools, to move away from the property tax and to go to a progressive income tax that will be simpler for people to be able to understand and hopefully more fair. So I don't have any more details for that right now, but I just want to share with you that that's something that's being contemplated.
Good luck,
Yep, well,
good luck. You know, I'll just tell you something. When I first went into the legislature, I was on the education committee, and we were working on the formula then.
was that before Brigham?
No. I don't think so.
I think Brigham was 92.
Oh, then it was, well, been before Brigham, yeah. It was before Brigham, then. Yeah, it was 81.
Yeah. That's the intent anyway. As you well know, things grow on their own at times, but there is the intent to make your local taxes a little more understandable.
You know, I just want to say one other thing. Since you're raising this issue with the school thing, we weren't, no, I didn't know you were going to talk about that, but you should know that you're representing us, and we are Westminster with a school of 140 kids or 150 kids or more, is being put together with a school that is now combined and has very, very low student population. And to put those together for needs is going to be just bizarrely ridiculous.
Totally.
And I think you ought to remember the word ridiculous when you're up there and you're talking about it. It's ridiculous.
Act
okay?
46 is a bad law to start with. It's why I didn't vote for it and why I'm continuing to push to change it. And I've got a bill in the hopper that's getting drafted right now. I think it was a big mistake. I think alongside that you have the Agency of Education overreaching what the intent of the bill was. And what happened as the state board was holding its hearings, when we saw what was going on, even people that voted for it, our two senators did vote for that bill. They led the way.
I'm sorry, Mr. Maraki. Are you saying that you voted against Act 46?
That's right.
And our two senators from this, who represent us, voted for it?
Oh, yeah.
Both?
That's right.
Thank you. I apologize for interrupting you.
No problem. And I can say my name in Polish too, if that'd be.
Did I pronounce it incorrectly?
You're fine in
Okay.
English.
I'm sorry.
There's enough Polish people in Westminster that can. But it's Morawiecki. There you go. Senator Ballot and Senator White, many of us signed on to a letter to the state board saying this is not what they voted for, or those of us who didn't. The real challenge has been the Agency of Education, what we consider their overreach in looking at this, and that's why there's a meeting coming up looking at the legal pieces that, and I think there's going to be two tacks. There's going to be the legal piece to file a suit and an injunction to stop the process, and then in the legislature what we're going to try and do is, my bill has three areas we're going to look at. The first is to push back by a year the deadlines for implementation. Give us some time to look at this and make sure we're using the law as it was written. The second is to create metrics. The Act 46 promised great savings and equity. And what I've been asking is, so what is equity? Are we just defining it by money? I don't think so. So I'm asking them to define the metrics that they're going to use and start measuring that to see whether the law actually works and where are the net savings. There's been a bunch of money that's put out, so-called incentives, but we don't know. We were promised big savings. When I've asked in the last year where the savings, I've been told we don't have those numbers. And my guess, if the savings were there, it would be writ large in banner headlines. So the third thing is for a requirement that when a vote is taken, the vote is honored and respected. Across the state and across this county, towns have come in, been asked to vote, and voted in a way that's then been ignored. Basic tenet of democracy is that we honor our votes. If we want people to come and vote, we better let them know that that vote's going to be honored. If we want to look at other states about voter suppression, there's no better way to suppress a vote than to ask people to come out and then ignore it. So that, the third piece. There's about 5 other bills that hope to look at Act 46 as well now. So we've got a coalition that's working together, and I'm hopeful that we're gonna make some progress on that in this session.
May I ask another question? Sure. And I really thank you for coming here and addressing this, because this is a huge issue amongst your constituency, and I'm very relieved to hear, because just frankly, I didn't know what your vote was on this, which is my fault. You said that, I just want to get your opinion on that. It is your opinion that the vote taken, the quorum that was taken under your constituency voted against this, to put those schools together, and your position is that ostensibly is just ignoring that vote?
That's in fact what's happening.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's across this county, across the state, votes have been taken and ignored.
And don't you and your senators take an oath of office when you're sworn in specifically to uphold the Constitution of the state of Vermont?
It would seem to be about as basic as it gets in democracy, to honor the vote of the people.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
If they knew going in that they didn't have to honor the vote, what was the reason for having the vote?
Well, that's a good question, and that's one of the things, at the meeting at the center school, Patty Whalen got up from West and said, if you have any hesitation about joining in a suit against your own government, don't. Because that's why we have these laws, and the only way we're gonna find out the process and discovery is if we file suit. And we wanna know, here's another example. What's the rationale behind telling Vernon they're gonna get stuck in a district with Townsend, an hour away? How does that make sense to
I
anybody?
thought Vernon is out of it all.
No, they're going somewhere, and in the initial plan, there was no recommendation. The state board has said that they're gonna match them up in the Wyndham Central.
Well,
with
Brian
tenants.
drives 10 miles through Rockingham to get to Westminster.
Yeah.
So
it's an interesting and unfortunate turn of events, the way this has gone. And the way many of us looked at it, there are communities that this was good for. And if they want to do this, fine. But the one size fits all is not what's needed here. And I don't care whether it's education or medicine, there's some correlations there that I think we're moving in a direction that's not going to benefit people.
Well, we appreciate that you have the position that you do, which is the same one we do, so that's good to know.
And some of those votes were, some of those votes, I mean, there was a subjective conditioning, correct? Some of these towns were not forced to, but others were. Do you have any explanation as to what kind of process was utilized there?
I can't even guess. I think that the people on the state board were told this was the law, and I'm not, I can't agree with how it was interpreted.
Thank you.
Okay.
What I'd like to share, and I don't want to, I'm sure you've got a lot of other things that you've got to take care of at this time. I'm certainly willing to take questions. What I want to offer on behalf of my new district mate as well too, is that we're willing to come when you need us. I speak with Russ pretty regularly, and I think the first thing we did together, and you were pretty new on the job, was when the bridge went out because of the hurricane, and David Dean was just great, and together we worked with Sue Minter, Department of Transportation, to, I forget how much money that turned out to be. Was it 300?
$289,911.69.
And again, it was unfortunate that FEMA, I think, said they were going to cover it, but it's the kind of, what you should expect from us to work together with Russ on that, and we'll continue. Hopefully, we're not going to have any more bridges go out, or you're not going to have to rebuild your business because of floods, but we're ready to work whatever you have. You know, I can say, looking forward, a couple of the bigger things that I think we're going to be looking at, and this may not be a big one, but it's been hanging out there for a long time, and it's something the state needs, is the broadband and connectivity build-out. There have been 3 governors now that have promised we're going to get this, and I think many of us feel like economically it's a necessity for us to have state-of-the-art, not third world connectivity. It's so scattered around the state that it's hard to do business for people. It's limited within towns, and I think it's time we make these are the kind of investments I think we need to make. There's a price tag of $300 million on this. And a week ago, Betsy Bishop came down from Montpelier, from the State Chamber of Commerce, and she said, you know, this is not a partisan issue anymore. I think we all agree this is something that's got to happen. So that's an example, I think, of how I think we can work together. The governor's already drawn his line in the sand that he doesn't want to raise the budget or raise any taxes, but the money's got to come from somewhere. The money's got to be put on the table for this to happen. I'm not sure how we're going to get there, but this is an investment for the future of Vermont. I think it's a barrier to business. It's a barrier to bringing new people into Vermont and to keeping some of the people here that we want. So that's something that's on our board. Healthcare, mental health care are another one. A lot of people Vermont has a very high rate of coverage of health insurance, but fewer and fewer people can use it because of the high deductibles and co-pays. The other piece alongside that, our mental health care system still hasn't recovered from the flood, from Tropical Storm Irene, and we're still struggling. And the reality is that we're in a building that is the first line of what happens when mental health issues are not covered, whether it's mental health, opioid-related issues. Our police are really the front line in our social services now, and in many cases it's because we don't have the resources we need. So that's something else we're going to be looking at. And agriculture as part of the economy is something. It was about a year ago that I'd heard from a number of people here, especially the Goodells over here at Westminster Farm, that the new required agricultural practices were being put in place, and they felt like it was, again, a one-size-fits-all that didn't take into effect that the climate up in Orleans or Franklin County is really not the same down here in Windham County, and yet the same requirements were put on farmers and how they work their fields. So David Dean and I got the Secretary of Ag, Anson Tebbets, to come down. We did a farm tour. We toured Harlow's. We toured a small farm in Putney, and then we toured the Goodell's farm. And then we had a question and answer time. I guess there were about 30 farmers, mostly dairy, but of different. Then what we came to understand, and the Secretary was open to hearing, is that, yeah, things are different down here, and people can get in their fields later, so they shouldn't be hampered by what was happening up in Montpelier with the rules. And I think the Goodells got a waiver, and what the Secretary said is, if you need a waiver, contact us, we'll work with you. And so they're able to work longer in their fields. And again, I don't think we have to argue the place of agriculture in Vermont's culture and economy. We want to make sure that when things like that happen, we'll be responsive and make things happen. I think I'll stop there and take any questions.
I've talked to you about this before, and the more I think about it, the more I really think it's something I'd like to see you pay attention to, which is the prescription stuff. And I happen to find out that if I don't use my insurance, which I pay $76 a month for, the prescription that I get is half the price as it is if I use my insurance. okay? And I've had some questions with the pharmacy, and they said that they have to, this is, their argument is that they have contracts with the insurance,
Managers.
the insurance companies and so on and so forth. So I got in touch with the insurance company and they said, absolutely not. You pay us $76 a month. That's all we care about. We don't care what they charge. But the fact is that a prescription that is $50 with my insurance is $25 without my insurance. And they don't want me not to use the insurance. I don't want to say any more about it, but I hope you've got it in your head.
No, we
And-
talked about this in the summer, and I think the biggest part of that is that most people don't know about that.
Of course they don't.
And that was passed along to the healthcare committee, and we need to make sure that word gets out there. And just in regards to prescriptions in general, we're not going to address the cost of healthcare unless we address the cost of prescriptions.
Okay, I
So,
don't want to,
yeah.
to belabor it, so.
Your point's well taken,
But I
Toby.
do want to have it in your mind. Thank
The
you.
unfunded pension liability issue, which New Jersey is in the crosshairs, right? They're gonna step over the line and give it a shot. I was a little shocked that actually our liability that it had gotten, I've seen estimates at $4.5 billion. Do you have a working committee, Michael? Or does the Senate have a working committee on this? Is there any type of visibility on our unfunded pension liability for teachers?
Actually, our treasurer has been great about putting that at the fore. And part of the discussion at the end of the last session was that we had a little extra money. The fight was, the legislature wanted to take that money and put it towards, and the governor thought it should go to a property tax reduction. What the treasurer told us was that if we put $30 million in that right now, in 20 years, we'd come back 90 million. It would treble in its value. We feel like, for two reasons, it's the right thing to do, and it was economically beneficial to do that. So that's what the fight was at the end of the session last year about. We wound up splitting the difference, but I think because of our state treasurer, she's as savvy and as smart as anyone I've seen. She has been putting that at the fore of what we do. The ironic thing is, one of the three bonding companies reduced our rating. I mean, we're AAA
Yeah.
because of that dynamic alone. So it is on the front burner, and I give the state treasurer credit for that. The legislature has picked up on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Well,
Yeah.
anytime. I'm on the south end of Pine Banks Road, so I'm not that far away, and I've got the easiest number in Putney to remember. It's 387-8787. Operators are standing by now. Take your call. The reason I came, though, was talking to Ross, and I don't know if you want to jump ahead to the piece, that when I spoke with the select board last week in Putney, the issue of dogs came up. And I know this is something you've been working with, and based on what Putney was wanting to look at, because they had some damages done, dogs killed, people, I've got a bill that's what's starting with changing to strict liability. Our laws currently have been described as first bite free. That if there's an incident with a dog bite, people aren't necessarily held liable. Strict liability would tighten that. It's something you probably want to talk to your lawyer about and get back to me with feedback. But after talking to Russ about some other situations on the north end of our road, and these are things are happening. It sounds like you've been working hard on your ordinances. And one of the things Russ was concerned about, and I don't know if I'm putting words in your mouth here, Russ, but
Yes.
stop me if I am. The concern is your ordinances, pardon the pun, need teeth.
That's correct.
And so what I've done is have the lawyers who draft bills see what we can do to put some teeth in this and back up what's happening. And when I brought it up to the Putney Select Board, they're saying the same thing. There are challenges with enforcement. And so I'm open to getting language from your lawyer to include in what we might call the omnibus dog bill. But it's a real issue for people. You know, there's a lot of issues at 10,000 feet that people are concerned about, but right on the ground level, it's serious, and I take it serious.
One thing we did talk about that kind of stewed this conversation up was that our municipal tickets are not worth the paper they're printed on. Once they're printed and they're put out there, it is up to the homeowner, dog owner, whatever zoning violation they've done or whatever. It's up to them to take care of it, and if it's not, there's no teeth in the court system to follow it through. So it can be a dog bite to anything. That municipal ticket is not worth powder to blow it up. So that is something that has to be looked at. We have to have something that we can fall back on. When it starts to get that vicious or that important.
So we'll continue to be in touch with Russ on that, and as I said, if you want to get us some language from your lawyer.
In your packet, you have his
Yes.
start,
Yes.
so.
Okay.
And personally, I think the school thing is really, because they're pushing it so hard, I think you guys have got to push back just as hard to make headway with it, because it's.
There's times where it's almost unbelievable. You think nothing like this could happen, and there it is. So, you know, I've been working with your school board, with the people in Putney, Dummerston. Putney is somewhat ambivalent about this. There's some people who support what had happened, but the town of Putney voted overwhelmingly against this. You know, in the Southeast Supervisory Union, I think it was a 3-1 against vote over the 4 towns. And I know in Westminster it was a strong vote against. So, yeah, this is something else we take very seriously. This shouldn't be that way in Vermont. So,
Mike, you spoke with a few senators about the vote?
yeah, you bet. And I think that what's happening is they're seeing the reality of it, and that's why they helped lead the way in pushing back against the state board and saying this is not what we voted for. We didn't vote for one size fits all, and I'll try and get Senator Ballot to forward you the letter that she helped compose and got the rest of us to sign on to. So,
That'd be great.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much
First
for.
time we have somebody to drive one of our select personnel. Huh?
No, she had
No.
a
Just picking on you,
commitment
Mike.
that she needed to deal with, so.
Nothing I said.
I told her
Well,
she.
I'm looking at you, that's why I was looking at you. What did you say to get her to get up?
I
and
gave
leave?
her an excuse, told her she could leave.
I was looking at Mike, he was the one that was talking, and she got up and left.
I better go before.
Right, they'll lose their quorum pretty soon.
All right. As I said, email's a great way during the session to get a hold of us. Our information's, Russ has my email, it's on the
Positive
website.
note, though, it was involved with a lot of businesses in town, I've never seen it where they're so desperate. I was just at 2 companies, one's looking for 50, another one's looking for 40, and another one's looking for 36 employees right away.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just a need for help. My company, we're still looking for another 40 to 50 people.
And it's all over the state.
It is, and I don't know if the state could do a little more about recruiting and getting people to come here,
Well-
so.
You know, I was at a national conference of state legislators. I was talking to some people from Minnesota, And what they're starting to do is what they're learning from Canada. And Canada has been doing international recruiting. If they've got a business that says, we need this, they're looking all over the world. And I think that's what Vermont needs to start doing as well. But those barriers that I mentioned, I think connectivity is one. Housing is another, especially in this county. Housing is so tight and so expensive. We need to see what we can do to help. The new president of the retreat 2 years ago said when he first moved here, he almost had to buy something in New Hampshire because the market was so tight. And this is not a guy who was hurting for money or had bad credit. So I think housing is another barrier. And you know, we recognize our economy is not going to grow unless we address this.
And these are the people to recruit, should be the only one, should be the ones that we put through our own school system.
Yeah.
That's what gets me, we're putting them through our school system, we're fighting taxes, they should be able to know what jobs are available around here.
And we are doing some things. I'll give you an example. Community College of Vermont just partnered, or has been partnering with Brattleboro Hospital. The hospital was experiencing the same thing for entry-level staff, people to do clerical work, but it has to be with a medical background. CCV designed a course based on what they got from the hospital that is now feeding people regularly to Brattleboro Memorial Hospital. It might be a 12-week course, just the basics to how to work in the hospital setting, and that's an example of what we got to keep doing.
Online, is that an online?
No, it's at the Brattleboro.
The online system is amazing, right?
It is.
I just, we were just talking about it. I work in finance, so Syracuse University
Yeah,
has just offered the first online law degree.
yeah,
So you don't have to even leave Vermont
yeah,
to become a lawyer.
yeah.
That's where, I'm just saying that's something we could be looking at to address what Craig is talking about, because
Do that. And my wife teaches online for CCV, but that comes back to the connectivity.
yeah, no, I agree.
You need the high speed,
Yeah, I agree with you.
yeah.
When you're going to school, if you know you have a job waiting for you, just like what you're referring to, it's so much, and that's what we see, is these companies are saying, we want to be involved with the education, because we don't want to take somebody who just wasted, not say wasted, but spent 4 years and not quite getting the education we need to know. And there's a lot of companies that are willing to expand into it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Dog ordinance. We just barely got this, so I think we should table this for at least one meeting until we get a chance to read it.
Just read it, because all they see is lines through it.
Susan wanted to table this because she hasn't had a chance to go through it. All I've done, just to give you an updated copy, I gave you the legal advice, and we've transferred it to the actual animal control document so that you have the latest and greatest. But yes, we should give you a chance to read it for next meeting.
Yep, thank you. Any other unfinished business at this time? Hearing none, we'll go on to new business, reflectors on the sides of the road.
Just an FYI, they're up. We put up we were going to spray the center line with the orange paint, and V-Trans told us absolutely not to do that. So Mark has purchased yellow tape that came in 30-foot rolls. We're gonna cut them in foot sections and put them as dashes. You have to actually heat the asphalt with a torch, set the plastic tape down, and then heat it again, and it kind of melts in there, and will withstand some plowing. Hopefully it's enough. He did put up 56 of the little reflective tabs, why I still don't know, and there was only 4 left the other day. I went slow and counted them. The traffic popped them off because of the cold tar to the adhesive didn't work. So we've been trying, we're struggling, but with now this cold weather, it's
What's the
getting harder and
reflectors
harder.
on the side of the road, is that what we're talking about?
Excuse me? The reflectors are on the side of the road already.
Those are up,
Those are up.
and those did make a difference.
Then, the only question is, so you take them back down in the spring? Is that what we're doing?
Yes, yes.
Well, when we get aligned.
Once we get the lines
You're
done,
gonna-
they'll,
You're just gonna
they'll
pick
be
'em up
fine.
and save them?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Sheldon, I just want to thank Russ for, I mean, I brought this up because of kind of a scary situation. And then, so to have the side post was really helpful, especially a couple of nights ago, like a week ago, it was a foggy night, and I could really use those. But Russ got a call from me in an email last Friday, because, I think it was last Friday. Anyways, I was on my way to work, heading towards Westminster West Road, and there was literally a Subaru coming down the middle of Patch Road, just past the Hosses, heading towards Barnes and Peck Road, literally in the middle of the road, because there were no markers, and I thought, oh, well, he's gonna pull over, and he didn't until I fortunately had a horn that worked. So very quickly, there were the center tabs, and I knew they weren't gonna last, but, it's pretty, there's something about that stretch of road, it's a little funky, so I'm very grateful for the effort, and it sounds like a lot of work to heat the tape and heat the pavement and heat the tape, but I will be thankful to have that temporarily, because I drive it, pretty much 7 days a week, so.
We'll do the best we can.
Yes, well, I'm offering my thanks.
Thank you. Town Hall Phase 3 funding.
We're gonna table that.
Okay.
Do we have this evening?
Town report dedication.
I don't know if you still need to discuss any other options that you've come up with, or were you happy with the decisions? We also didn't talk, excuse me?
We haven't made it.
No, we
You didn't have any formal decisions, but you're going to have to soon, but I didn't know if you
I didn't know if you
needed
had a
to go
meeting,
in
you made a
or-
decision while I was
Let's,
gone.
let's table it till Sue's here,
Okay.
or till it full board.
You
Exec-
need a motion on that one? Personnel? Is that what you?
That I don't know, because the personnel executive session is.
Please.
Okay.
Make a motion that we have executive session for personnel matter. Invite
Seconded.
The town manager.
Motion's been moved and seconded to go into executive session on a personnel matter. Personnel matter. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, we will go into executive session after other business. Cemetery deed, I need a motion.
I moved that we grant the cemetery, looks like 3 lots of lots 81, 82, and 83, for a total of $450. You need in the motion who they go to, or is this?
I'd like to explain it, so I need a second before I can.
Second,
Motion's been moved and seconded to revise a cemetery deed, or do a cemetery deed revision.
And why I'm saying it's a revision is because you voted about 2 meetings ago on the Kingsbury's purchasing these lots. They added their daughter as an executor to the will, so
The one that
that's
Shirley
the
did.
only thing that's made, they've added their daughter's name to the deed. So,
So the lots haven't changed, they've just changed the deed.
that's correct.
Or has it changed? Because there's 3 burials.
That was always that way.
It was always that way, all right.
In other words, lots 81, 82, and 83 were always gonna go to the Kingsbury, now they're adding
Correct, they just
Shirley.
added.
Shirley, okay.
So you made a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded to revise the cemetery deed for Evelyn Kingsbury and James Kingsbury, add Shirley Damone, all those in, Damone? Damone. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. You want to sign
Yes, please.
in presence of or by duly authorized agent?
The duly authorized.
First look at articles for town meeting.
Just to get your processes thinking about the town meeting, I typically give you guys at least a couple chances to add or subtract articles that you so choose. Again, this is just an FYI draft to get you started in the right scheme of what we're going to be up against this year in town meeting.
Article 8, is that the amount that they got last year?
That's not correct. That's what they've applied for.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So
So,
got to keep going at least another 2 years.
no, they asked for, did they ask for more than that? Well, last year we.
We granted only the 47, so they would have to petition again for the 95.
That's what I'm saying. They're not just gonna leave it there, they're gonna come right back to the 95.
That's correct.
Thanks.
I think the West Library, if I'm not mistaken, is in their last year,
Yes, this is their last year.
and SEFCA's got 2 more. And of
And-
course, the Institute is their first one, so. But again, please look at it and we'll have a discussion.
Where are we this year?
We're first.
Yeah. Great.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Hearing none, we'll move on to managers report, I guess.
Just a quick overview of what's had happening. Town hall renovations, the roof is being placed over the new entrance. Front door replacement will happen on next week. Hoping to get it completed before Christmas. I did have a meeting with Wendy Harrison, who is the municipal manager for BF in Rockingham. Some very valuable discussions happened about sharing services and et cetera, as we've been talking about. I have nothing new on the property sale with the Zednek property. The Manditch lawsuit, they found and served Mr. Manditch in Trafford, Pennsylvania, this past week, giving us a packet of information such as this, stating all of the items that I've been slowly but surely feeding you. So that's a good thing. Farnsworth purchase, we have a closing next Wednesday at 10 a.m. in my office. Citizen of the Year, this is for the camera and our public Citizen of the Year nomination request. It was in the Gazette, but we haven't received any yet, but the deadline for the nominations is January 4th. Please get them to the town hall. And just an FYI, the manager, me, will be out next Monday and Tuesday, the 17th and 18th. I have a concert in just outside of Plymouth, Mass. for my daughter.
Good.
Are you singing?
Excuse me?
Are you singing?
She is.
Well, why do you have an S after?
It's not even her kids, it's her.
Why do you have an S after daughters?
Just a quick question,
Don't know,
and I didn't,
sorry.
a quick question, I didn't look at it, and I don't know whether you know anything about it. Community House, North Westminster.
The covering has been done.
Okay, I didn't.
Yep.
I didn't happen to notice whether it had or not.
Yeah,
so.
I had to get out. You don't see it right from the road.
No, you don't.
Either way, I had
Really?
to get out and I had to walk up and take a peek, and yes, it is
Okay.
completely done.
I wasn't sure whether it had been or not, so.
I couldn't see it from the road either, so that's what I was looking at.
Okay, boards and commissions.
Still looking for some planning commission people. We need at least 2 more. The DRB is full. Ed Hardy filled Eric Anderson's position, so all is good.
How was Eric? Any change?
Not doing well, is what I've been told. I haven't seen
Any other business to be conducted?
Can I ask about the candles? So I can put it in minutes, please.
The candles, do you mean the
Luminaires?
Yes.
luminaires?
Times and,
I have not set times yet, so I cannot put it in the minutes. I have not been
You're-
contacted with Doreen yet.
You in charge?
I am in charge, I guess. I didn't realize I was until yesterday,
you,
but I am in charge.
Did you need a
so.
donative for that?
What?
Did you need a donative from us again for that?
A donative?
It's next Friday.
What is that?
Did I give you money for the flags? Did you need me to give you money for this?
No, we don't need it. We have the sand, we have the bags, we just need
Okay.
help with the bags.
Okay.
Friday is the day that they are planning on emptying the firehouse, put the trailers in, start putting the bags in with the sand and the candle, getting it all prepared, and then Monday
And
afternoon.
I haven't lined up, I'll be quite honest, I haven't actually lined, because I just found out that I was the one that was taking charge of it again. So I have to get trailers lined up, and I haven't even talked to Cole yet, so.
Trailer? Oh, let me know.
But-
I know where you can get it.
A trailer, another trailer. We had two of them last year, I don't know if we needed it or not, because we had the one for basins, and we had one that I came up with.
GMH has got a whole bunch they turned in. They have no place to park them, so if you can find a place to park, I'll probably can give you whatever. Let me know. Are you looking for?
These are just low trailers that we put the flag, take the bags
Oh,
out.
like a flatbed?
Okay,
Yeah,
so,
well, yep.
Date of next meeting?
are we gonna have a meeting?
That's why I'm asking.
Day of the next meeting, December 26, 2018, is that correct? Day after Christmas.
What, he's got a question if.
I've actually thought we were going to January.
Yeah, that's what the question is. You've done what I've asked. There's no pending emergency meeting needed for the 26th. It's up to you, but we could move on to January 9th, which is the public hearing on the budget. So it would be a 6 o'clock meeting for you, but we could skip the 26th. It will be the first one that you've skipped this year. So, it's not a bad
You
thing.
seem like you're pushing hard to go that direction, so.
I don't, it's not for me. I'm gonna be here.
Day of the next meeting will be January 9th.